over here, Charlie, if you want.
I put some in my office, and I had my fill of it this morning.
Okay.
Thank you, though. Did Joe leave those for us, or?
Since Joe wasn't going to be here, I found my leftover Halloween candy.
Now I'm curious. I'm a coconut person.
Me too.
Some of my family, not so much, but.
Are you from Minnesota originally?
No, I'm from Ohio originally.
Okay.
And my niece's husband is going to be a minister.
Ah.
So he got assigned, and this was their top choice, was Grand Marais, Minnesota, but they live in Hovland. Population 1,300 people. So.
1,300? Wow.
And she's from, she was born in Toledo, but she grew up in Huntsville, Alabama.
Oh, really? Oh, that's a big,
It's a big shift, but
Big
they're
shift.
liking it so far, which is like, that's good.
people are very, there really is a Minnesota nice thing, so.
Yeah, like the weekend they got there, like they got invited to a bunch of stuff, and
Yeah.
so that's good. Because I was a little worried, but big shift for her.
Yeah.
I brought a drawing of the layout for the room.
Oh, good. Let's give Deborah a few minutes. I know Joe can't be here today.
Yep.
And Glenn is here, so.
Yep. No candy for him.
Right, no candy for me.
Yeah, we've got candy here. Tom and Glenn are out of luck.
I'm just sharing because it needs to not all be in front of me.
Glenn, I forgot to check the enforcement section that you revised. Are there changes in the level of fines?
I don't think in the level of fines. I think we just took out the jail time and that sort of
Okay.
stuff. I think. I can go back and look at it.
Yeah, we didn't change the fine, it just refers to fines. We didn't make changes to that.
Okay. But it specifies the fines in it, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Let me bring it up.
Hello, Deborah.
Hello.
There's candy, Halloween candy here.
Great. I've got another pile there.
Oh, there. Oh, yeah, there you go.
Got us covered.
Okay, so it is 1:02. Let's call the meeting of the LPC Subdivision Code Review Subcommittee to order. We had from our last meeting a catch-up set of minutes. And we would love for someone to propose the adoption. Well, first of all, does anyone have any changes or corrections to those minutes?
No, I propose that we adopt the minutes that were presented from the last meeting.
All in favor? Aye. The two of us carry the vote. Now, we left over from the last meeting, our objective today is to spend a maximum of the first hour going over feedback on the comparison that we had of the 22 factors and identifying any kind of final changes to things. And revisiting whether the insurance levels are sufficient or not. So let's first turn to the 22. And I hope everyone still has that comparison table. There were some concerns that as to whether we had covered off effectively enough kind of compatibility with adjacent area land uses and a couple other areas. Does anyone have any comments, changes, or concerns about the way in which we've tried to cover off the 22? And when I say cover off the 22, there are two that we agreed at the last meeting were not reflecting in the new code. Those two are number 18, whether the estimated cost to be borne by the city during construction can be met from available city funds. Number 19, whether the estimated expense to the city can be justified on the basis of estimated tax returns. And we're not using that one because we believe that it is more appropriate, it's not applicable for subdivisions, but is applicable for annexation. Because a subdivision is already within the city, it's zoned for a given use, and the owner has the right to use it without consideration of provision of city services.
Agree.
And the other one we're not covering off is job creation.
Yes.
Did folks have a chance to reflect on this? I did not get any notes in from Joe. So,
The only one that I wanted to comment on was the diverse housing options, just making sure that we're going in a direction that is applicable to Lewis today. So, when we're looking at the site design and requiring a mix of housing styles and sizes, I think that's as far as we can go. Previously we had to consider a little further than that with the comp plan, but I don't think it's really applicable to the market to say diverse housing options with the land costs at present. Defining diverse is a hard one.
and does anyone know what's the largest plot of land basically left within the city of Lewis? This is not considering any annexation, possibilities.
That would probably be
Would it be?
the Fisher's Cove property, right?
Or the area off of 4th Street?
Yes, the area in 4th Street, and
then there's
and the dairy. How large is the dairy?
the dairy's not that big, but there
Yeah,
is,
it
Parcel off of Gill's Neck,
Showfield too.
Showfield,
Yeah.
on the other side of White's Pond.
Okay.
Right,
Those are the three
okay.
largest parcels that I can think of that are
That
undeveloped.
are present in the city.
Correct.
And then also, when we're talking about Showfield 2, we're not talking about, what is it, Admiral's Chase, right?
That's outside the city.
That's outside.
That's outside the city. It's really, I want to say Freeman and Gill's Neck,
Yeah.
that corner right on the other side of
And
White's
are
Pond.
there any areas that we think of as not ideally developable, if I can spit that out, but, combining lots and paper streets, and is there anything down along the marshlands on the beach that could still be combined to make larger?
There's probably always lots that can be combined and potentially even a minor subdivision. Unfortunately, those don't fall into these categories.
Right.
But definitely, I can't think of one that would be applicable to a major subdivision unless something happened to the Children's Beach House or the yacht
Yeah,
club.
that's what I was just thinking.
I'm like, those are the only ones I can think of.
Yeah.
The city owns a lot of that land.
Correct.
Yeah,
Right.
a big, gigantic portion of it.
Yes.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
the majority of the marshland is owned by the city.
But, there has been discussion of, and there has been some selling of lots and things that have occurred. So just trying to use due diligence on this, and theoretically, could a townhouse development, say, well, we could all agree to sell this and go in for a new subdivision, you know, I'm not saying it's likely, but like, look what happened at Broadkill.
So,
A bunch of small cottages got plowed down together, and it created a subdivision.
so the good thing is the majority, the residential zoning between the bay and the canal is R3, which is a one-family residential. So you're not going to see townhouses. So I think you're just going to continue to see single families.
I kind of always thought that way about Abbott Park, but it's changing on its own inside there, so I don't know that it's going to be sold and developed.
And which one? Abbott. Oh, Abbott Park, yeah. Well, the other thing is now have we actually annexed Donovan's, or is the BPW just?
No, that has not been annexed.
Still in the works. Yeah.
They're still working on that one.
Because realistically, it's going to happen.
No.
No? Okay. I would trust you, Charlie.
I will get us off of debating the hypothetical.
Okay, thank you, Nancy.
Can I just say that
Yeah.
on number 15 about the traffic impact study, so we've added a definition to the code section, and I was beginning to work on some pretty detailed language for the street section as to what would be required inside a traffic operational analysis, but I wonder if it's just suffice to say, that it's required, sort of the same language.
Now, when you say that, is this a new definition that we haven't seen before,
Yeah.
Charlie?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's in Tom's latest iteration there.
Sorry, the iteration we had for the last meeting.
No, the one he
Okay.
sent out yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
I handed that to you today.
Yes.
Okay.
And I printed some other things this morning, so.
Yeah, so I'm still wrestling whether I need to go into like full-blown detail about what a study should include, because that's a lot. Or if I can just keep it simplistic and maybe deal with it on a case-by-case basis.
Would we be using the definition or be referring to DelDOT's rules and regulations for a TOA and a TIS? And would that be a good out to reference that? Or
I
no?
can look into that. I couldn't find anything on DelDOT subdivision code where it actually required a traffic study, which I found surprising. But maybe I just missed it.
Yeah, it's usually, I know it's based on the number of trips that are
That's in our
generated.
definition, yeah, that's in
Yeah,
our
and that's what
definition, yeah.
triggers it, and then I don't know because I think they have a whole, it feels like they have a whole book that says this is what has to be done for a TOA
probably
or a
what
I
TIS.
mean, I think it would be good maybe to reference that and say it would include,
But not be limited to that, in case there are some additional, specific situations where we'd want something
Yeah, let me look into that.
special,
This is on the last topic, but it was just brought to my attention that there is another large parcel, perhaps, that is undeveloped, that is, I guess, along Gill's Neck, adjacent to Freeman and the bike path.
That's the other show field.
yeah.
That is considered the other show field.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it originally came in to be developed as part of what is now Old Town at White's Pond.
Right.
So it's actually on the other side of it's literally the corner of Freeman and Gill's Neck.
Right.
And that's the parcel we're talking about.
Okay.
It was at one point going to be part of Schofield, they just have not decided to move forward with it yet, at this point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else on this comparison? I think it looks good, and I think it's very helpful, or it's going to be very helpful for the meeting, so thank you, Tom, and Charlie, for pulling things here. And Janelle, of course.
And I also want to say kudos to Janelle for a very good presentation to the Parks and Rec last night.
Oh, well, let me finish. Okay, so we are copacetic with this we're in agreement that this is something we will pass out at the meeting, correct?
And we'll have that up on boards, and I have an example of what that would look like.
Second thing that we had was, is the insurance sufficient? And I don't know whether we have any further information on that gives us any insight of what other folks are asking for in terms of insurance, or, I mean, quite frankly, I was surprised because the insurance level seems to be about the level that if you have a condo in some buildings, you have to.
So I increased I think, general aggregate and one other line item of insurance. Let me see what that was. From 2 million to 3 million. And that was, let me see if I can find that.
Looking too.
It would be cross-referenced, Nancy. Is there any place in particular that?
I don't know what Rehoboth requires, or...
Wait, oh no, I mean, within our.
Oh, you mean, where is it in here? What page? 1 second.
It's page 28.
28, thank you, Glenn.
Yep. So I increased general aggregate under general liability and products, completed operations aggregate to 3 million from 2 million.
Okay.
And that's all I did. I thought about increasing the umbrella liability from 5,000 or from 5 million to something else, but I did not do that.
I don't see it higher than 5 usually, Charlie. I think 5 is probably sufficient.
Glenn, how are we comparing to Rehoboth? I think that's the only comparison that is applicable.
Well, the thing with Rehoboth is nobody's doing major subdivisions in Rehoboth. There's just no land for it. So I don't even know if there is an insurance provision within Rehoboth's code. I can't recall that there is.
So it sounds like we're close to the right spot. We'll have another kick at this can if we get information that we didn't.
Yeah, and I didn't look at other municipalities. I can do that, and we got some time, right? So I can look at that, and if there's anything that jumps out at me, I'll bring it to you guys' attention.
Yeah, and again, is there even a comparison? So
Well, there might be some other, I don't know, Georgetown or something, we'll see what the other people have.
I had just a few, I don't know whether anyone in reading this over, I feel like each time I read it over, I have an additional question or like a little nit. And most of these kind of struck me in the last hour before this meeting, or I would have just sent an email. When we look at the electric utility, under standards number 2, we say utility easements shall be provided and shall normally be located adjacent to the front, side, and rear property lines of each individual lot. All front and, oh no, this says all front. I forget that one, I just was not reading it thoroughly enough. A second one is in the definitions, when we cover the definition for the Joint Site Development Review Committee, the way we title H Park leaves the P out of it. So we say Historic and Architectural Review Committee, and I think it's Historic Preservation and Architectural Review Committee.
We'll fix that.
Just want to, if we're correcting the name of it, we want to correct it to the right one. And then the final one is, I would just like to, in advance of this public meeting, make sure I understand the kind of flexibility we've provided in open space if more than 30% of the gross area for open space would utilize green technology stormwater best practices. And my concern with this one is that it's something that has to be permitting recreational use during a majority of weather conditions. And I'm not actually sure what a majority of weather conditions means. I can think of the majority of the time, but I don't have like an exhaustive list of weather conditions that we can...
I would kind of take that the same way, like climate versus, temperature versus weather. I would take that as the majority of the time would be the majority of the weather conditions. I personally, I'm beating a dead horse here, but I am uncomfortable with only 20% open space. And I know that is an ongoing problem, and sorry to bring it up again, but I am uncomfortable with 20% open space. I think it should be a minimum at least 30%. But I think we'll hear what we hear from the public.
Yeah.
And, and I think there were certainly concerns. I got the sense last night when you presented to the parks about trees was another one. So,
Yeah, I think there was just a lot of questions about, if they're gonna be city trees or, homeowner, HOA, homeowner association maintained, whose responsibility,
what the trees will look like, how big they are, how we will ensure how big they are.
like, and again,
And you addressed that. Right?
Yeah.
That's stuck in my mind. I asked the same question
yes,
last meeting.
exactly.
So that makes me feel better that we are
Yeah.
within our little group asking the questions
Yeah.
that inquiring minds are going to want to know.
Right.
I can't remember how we left it when we were talking about stormwater, when we were talking about eliminating.
We eliminated stormwater. We eliminated stormwater management basins, spillways, level spreaders, bioretention areas, and water retention ponds
From open space.
from open space, yeah.
Yeah, so Deborah, that'll help.
So,
Yeah.
Glenn,
Yes.
from a legal perspective, is this definition clear to you?
Are we in the open space
We're in
section
open,
of the code?
sorry, we're in
Intent to provide
open,
open space in conjunction with that, or back in the definitions section?
we're in the open space section, open space E4C2.
And on the present
Projects
language,
that
which
provide
number?
more than 30% of the gross area for open space and would utilize green technology stormwater best management practices that can be graded into the natural terrain, permitting recreational use during a majority of weather conditions. Planning Commission may recommend relief from this provision, which may be granted on the discretion of council. Is that the section?
Yes. And if I'm an applicant, or if I'm a member of the public, I'm not sure how I determine what permitting recreational use during a majority of weather conditions is.
Right. And I think your discussion concerning climate versus weather, I mean, I guess what is the intent, right? I mean, you're getting to rewrite it now. Is it the intent that, whether it's raining or sunny it can be used, or is it whether it's cold or warm it can be used?
I think it's
I think a
both.
lot of times it's whether it's flooded or not.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
a lot of times you can't use a field like soccer games and things because it's so wet, a lot of times it will tear it up.
Yeah.
And this isn't for soccer fields, but that's kind of, I think, the sensitivity that if it's used even a few times, it can get torn up by casual use. So it shouldn't be, I think a lot of times if it's in a floodplain, it's not necessarily bad if the floodplain drains quickly enough, but if it's always squishy and unusable, and I don't know what always means. I think Nancy's looking for a standard.
So
And
is
I'm
it-
not sure that
yeah.
I've seen one, but that's I'm addressing the intent of it.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking for a standard, and I want to make sure that someone coming forward and saying, yeah, it's flooded, but kids can
Kayak.
can kayak in it, or they can put remote controlled boats can be played within it.
Right, right.
Slip and slide.
Is it something that we need the weather permitted?
Are the majority of weather conditions in there, or is that too, I mean, because I could see it in Deborah looks at it as weather conditions one way, Nancy looks at it as another way, Tom looks at it another way, and I think it could be something that could be used as too vague, and is it necessary? I'm just throwing that out there, because if we're just concerned that, for projects that provide more than 30% of the gross area for open space and would utilize green technology, stormwater best management practices can be, you know, I mean, you're allowing those. Are we concerned whether or not they're going to be available during a blizzard or a hurricane or a flood? I think that's something is up to you guys.
I mean, I think, you know, one could argue that the basketball courts at Canal Front Park can't be used in the middle of a hurricane, just because you shouldn't be outside in the middle of a hurricane. But I think we know what we want to achieve here, but I'm not sure we have the correct language for it, but I'm struggling with what the correct language would be. I think what we want to achieve is that if someone is using green technology, stormwater best management practices, and they've graded it appropriately into the terrain, and you have a space that actually can be used throughout the year on a regular, normal basis for recreational activities.
It's more about the terrain than the weather. It's
Yeah, so do we need,
solid terrain, you know? I'm not sure how you say that.
because I'm just
And
thinking,
that's debatable too.
if it's been graded into the natural terrain and it's permitting recreational uses, do we need the weather permitting
Yeah.
language? I'm just throwing that out there. Tom, any suggestions?
Well, I think you're on to something that it's not all open space we're saying this about. It's something that's having more than 30%, and it's good enough to put a BMP in, so it would need to infiltrate water in order for the BMPs to work. So I think it's probably getting to where if you have a site, you're going to have more than required already open space. So you're going to have much more, or not much more, but you're going to have more, and then you're going to apply a BMP to this area. So it would need to be able to infiltrate pretty well. And I don't see that there's going to be too many instances where a place like that would be flooded so often that you can't use it. I think it's getting down to flooding again because we're mixing the BMPs in with it. And that means that they're being put there to channel stormwater. I think Janelle's right that we're not going to see it too often, and it's something that the Planning Commission can look at and use its discretion about, is this area going to be suitable for BMPs, and then can it also be used for recreation to count for it?
I'm leaning now towards getting rid of majority of weather conditions, that statement all, and just leave it with it's available for recreational use. Normally available, or maybe just available for recreational use, maybe.
I'm struggling with what this actually means. You're
Yeah,
already
that was
providing
my
more
struggle
wide
too.
open space. What relief do you need from city council?
That's what I was wondering too.
But that's what I was
What relief
thinking
are
the
we
same.
granting?
Well, I think the relief we're giving is, we've said earlier that you can't count stormwater basins towards the open space. So now this is saying, and it has to be 20% open space. So if you had a stormwater basin that's using BMPs that takes up, let's say it takes up 20% of the space, and you have an additional 10% of open space that isn't being used for any stormwater management. This would be saying that you could come to City Council, you could come to to the Planning Commission, and at the discretion then of our recommendation and City Council's decision, you could say, I want that whole stormwater area to count towards my open space. So I'm really only going to give you 10% of the true definition of open space here, because the other, I have another 20%. It's a stormwater basin, but it's a different stormwater basin. It's one that is graded, and we're using BMPs, and so it's an actual grassy area that could be used for recreational activities all year.
I think another example is that there are instances where you need to provide more than 30%. in the annexation zone, you're required to provide 50%. I think it's 50%. So in that case, this would still apply, that you could use BMPs on part of the open space that's more than the 30% or whatever it's set at. And then you would be allowed, because you have a bigger area of open space, that you would be able to use this for.
I see.
Yeah, I feel like, are we providing a loophole?
No.
Yeah.
I don't think you are.
I think
Does it do this
it's
amount
providing an
of
incentive
green technology?
I'm sorry, it was hard to, there was time and at the same time.
I think Tom vote.
I was just saying, I think, Deborah, what you said, are we creating a loophole? Was that your question?
Yes.
I think, yeah, what I would say, or what I'm trying to offer, is that BMPs are something that the city would like to see considered more of, instead of building systems to contain it, is ways to control it without systems. And you can't require it, but you can offer incentives. And this, in my mind, is an incentive to use this more.
That's what I was taking it as, but, I'm idealistic, I don't know why we can't require it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's there more, it should be there, and the intention is to provide an incentive, and to provide an incentive for when you're looking at stormwater management, you're providing it in a very attractive and useful way, as opposed to just digging a big hole,
Can I add a couple of things to this? A majority of best management practices don't lend themselves for recreational use, first of all, so there'll only be like specific instances when this happens. And then in the paragraph just above the one we're talking about, in item C there,
Right.
I kind of feel like bioretention areas and level spreaders, they are green stormwater or best management practices. In my mind, they are. I think generally in the engineering world they are. And I think we're trying to say, and that, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but I think we're trying to like eliminate dry retention ponds, wet retention ponds, and other sort of non-best management practice stormwater management devices. Is that our intent there?
Right, I think some communities, they are allowed to count as required open space, and the intent here is to say that under this code, they're not allowed to count as the required open space. But
Even
the one
BMP?
below it too is offering that some of them can be used when you have more than the required open space, and they
got you,
can
okay.
count.
So it's kind of saying, in my mind, it was saying, if you have a bioretention area, it needs to be done in a way that matches 2.
Yeah.
And then if you're providing 30%, you can count it.
Yeah, I guess I was
Right.
just thinking from our discussion last week that we were generally trying to incentivize the use of BMPs, whether it was greater than 30% open space or not.
So I'm just going to throw this out. Based on what Charlie's saying, is that level spreaders and bioretention areas seem to be one of the more commonly used BMP for stormwater management?
Yeah, definitely both of them, yeah.
And they could lend themselves to some type of recreation or some type of use, I think.
Likely not.
Okay.
Either one of those, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the point, though, is that we don't
I'm
want
just
them to
trying to-
count when they can't really be used.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
All right, I'm clear
if
on
they
that,
can
yeah.
figure, if there's, and, approaches change, new best practices get, so if we focus on the use, then as the technology changes, as long as the impact or outcome is usable space, then they have the option. I'm sensing a consensus, or maybe it's just my own opinion, that we take out during a majority of weather conditions.
I would, yes.
Okay, let's
Yeah, I would
agree on
agree with
that.
that.
Okay. Any other items?
I'm gonna go with the old one.
So, at the end of the last meeting, I mentioned the Joint Site Development Ad Hoc Review Committee. I found it this morning, because it was, of course, hiding in plain sight. So, under, oh, now I'm gonna lose it. 170-33, which is Article 5. C3, I would like to remove upon notification by the city planner that an application for approval of a project subject to Chapter 170, Article 5 has been filed. To each January and June, H Park and LPC shall designate their 3 respective members to serve a 6-month term on the JSDRC. Because I think everybody was okay with the 6-month term. And I think that just cleans that up.
Okay.
And I'll get that to you, Tom.
Okay.
And this is A, right?
Or C.
Could you send that,
Sorry.
can you also send that to me, because I'll need to make the annotation
Okay.
in the kind of public presentation of that one, okay? Great, okay. Anything else before we start on the public presentation and meeting?
No, I truly think that the citizens who are going to be involved and interested and come will give their input, as you know, other committees may too.
And I hope everyone here will speak to folks to remind them of this meeting, because I suspect it will be, my experience with these kinds of meetings is the first one isn't attended by a lot of people, and then, a few people come out and hear what's going on, and they talk, and it generates more interest, so that the second meeting has many more people. And the degree to which we can get more input at this meeting, the better, so.
And how long are we going to leave the record open for input after the meeting?
I suggested, and this is, as we go through this presentation, I suggested that we say that we're leaving it open till December 15th.
I just want to clarify, it's not the record.
It's not the record,
It's
that's
comment.
right.
An
It's
option.
not the record, it's the what?
It's
comment.
a comment,
The comments.
period.
Okay, yes.
It's still really, really early, and I don't want to
Yes.
confuse people
No.
thinking something else.
This is
That's-
nothing close to being passed.
Correct.
And I think what also the other generator is, the Cape Gazette covers it, and then people are aware of it. And then it was in the paper today,
Yeah.
but, it's only the most avid readers will look in that section.
I've done an email blast. I've put it on
I know you
a
have.
public calendar, because apparently I tried emailing yesterday, it didn't work, so we had to redo it today. Unless people got it twice, my apologies. And I will be sending an email to a lot of developers and lawyers. I think I actually gave them like a save the date type of thing, so I'll remind them again.
That's good.
It would just be really interesting too, is how to get, experts from our community to come in. We have, so many people who are arborists and, have a lot of wealth of knowledge, and horticulturists, and people who could really, maybe they don't want to serve on a planning committee, but could give good ideas and input into something like this. And I invite and hope that they will participate, or at least read and give feedback.
Yes, and don't forget, there will be an online component, so if
Yes.
you can't do it in person, I'm working on that webpage. I want to find everybody's agreement on what I've been working here before I finalize that.
So why don't we dive into what the materials would be, and can we go through this first? Janelle and I had a brief discussion about kind of a schedule for this, and at a very, very high level, what we were talking about was because it goes from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., that we do the overview presentation twice. And do the first one at like 10:15, because, not everybody arrives on time, and do the second one at noon. So people who may have things in the morning, who can come in during their lunch hour or whatever, could hear it and do it. And then in between, we still have the mic open for comments, and we still have the stations, and people can be moving around those. So what I have right now that Janelle's pulled up onto the screen is a still fairly rough draft of a presentation. It's not in the city format yet, but it's the content we're looking at. And, it begins with, why we're reviewing this. And folks have seen these slides before. Then a second is the code review process. And I get a little hazy at the bottom of this because after it goes to, once we at the LPC are done with our work and send it to mayor and city council, the normal code change process is then followed. And that does require another public meeting, correct?
So for mayor and council, they are required to schedule a public hearing, so you could always just say number 7 is mayor and council will hold a public hearing.
That's assuming they want to move ahead with this. They
Correct.
could say no.
And the planning commission is not required to hold a public hearing. They may, if you so choose, or they can just take public comment during a meeting.
Okay.
So they have a couple of options on how to obtain public comment.
Is this just the preliminary approval, or is this everything?
This would be everything.
Where's the end of the preliminary and the beginning of the final?
Oh, this is just for the ordinance.
Oh, this is our work.
Yeah, this is
our work. This is getting the code changed, not getting the subdivision. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, so LPC may hold. What LPC would hold, would that be a hearing or a meeting?
Either.
Okay.
They will discuss it during, they do need to discuss it during a public hearing, a public meeting, so a normal meeting. And they can either take comments there from the public, absolutely, or they can schedule a special public hearing to do that. That is up to the planning commission. They are not required to hold a public hearing. Typically what they've done and lately is during a normal meeting when the application's being discussed, they'll just take public comment at that time.
Yeah.
But there's 2 different options to take public comment for the planning commission.
Okay, I will correct this slide then. And then the next one is scope. And what's in scope is Chapter 170, subdivision and land development. What's not in scope is zoning, building code requirements, wetlands, annexation. Like, in a sense, what's not in scope, there could be a very, very long list of what's not in scope, but I tried to highlight the things that somebody might think is covered. And then I was struggling with
Just thinking, in parentheses after zoning, might it be wise to address everything to include there, just a little comma list of examples of hot topics of zoning that people want to discuss?
what would you list as your hottest topics?
Sidewalk coverage, setbacks, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of
Size.
the comments we received from developers were some on the subdivision, but some of them were also on zoning, or the building code.
Okay.
So I think it'd be good to reflect their feedback, and what Deborah's saying is maybe list a couple of those out.
Tom,
So the people
Janelle,
really
and
do
Farley,
understand.
could you give me some examples to put after zoning and building code requirements?
Sure.
Absolutely.
And then I wanted to have something at the bottom that made it clear, because I think people come to these meetings and the first thing you say is, how does this apply to me? And immediately, many people there will be homeowners who have existing homes. And this basically, unless they have a large plot of land that could be, carved off and have a subdivision on it, it does not apply to them in terms of any changes they might want to make in terms of renovations or,
You're right, and you know what maybe would be the easiest thing right in here? I don't know if it would be in scope or maybe even before scope, but what is a major subdivision?
that's a good idea.
Definition right up
Yeah.
front, right before the scope perhaps.
Yeah,
You know,
I
what
think
is a
that's a great
major
idea.
subdivision? What is a minor subdivision? And
Yeah.
so that homeowners understand this isn't an attack on their ability to build, an addition onto their home.
And the why would you still be concerned is because you're a resident of Lewis. And this will be covering what's happening you may live there may be land adjacent to you that would fall under this. There may be,
Right.
but even if it's not adjacent to you, it's in the city you live in, so.
Yes.
We'd have to include site development plan in that list too, with major subdivision and minor subdivision, because it is in here, but there's also thresholds in there, so it's not for homes, it's for businesses over, I forget the amount of square feet, maybe
5,000?
2,000 square feet or something like
I would
that.
just say
So
for
we
commercial
can
site
augment
plans.
those definitions.
I think if you cover commercial site plans, and you use the word commercial,
Who's the best person here in our group to give me some verbiage on that?
myself or Tom,
Okay.
I'll try and work on that one.
You do that, Janelle?
Yep.
That would be fantastic. Great idea, Deborah. Then the next were considerations, and this was just an attempt to list all of the things that we thought about when we were reviewing this. And then I put in red the views of the public and developers and builders at the bottom, because that's what's happening at the meeting we're having, And while some of their views may have been reflected just based on issues that have been identified or observed by the LPC when applying Chapter 170, this is kind of their chance to make sure we're taking into consideration their concerns. Is there anything missing from this slide?
Thinking something about smart growth, but that,
I think in the process, more user-friendly. How can we get this point across is that basically giving feedback earlier in the process,
For everybody.
so everyone, before the applicant becomes over-invested,
Yeah.
both emotionally and financially.
So feedback and participation earlier in the process. Yeah, I like that. What?
The archaic requirement.
I was going to say archaic and irrelevant, because some of them are truly irrelevant,
Oh, that's true. Where, okay.
up under
Yeah, and
considerations.
irrelevant. Yeah, I was just seeing where it was there. Irrelevant. Okay. Any other thoughts on this slide? Okay. The next one is intent, and so we have change the overall process flow, make the process more user-friendly, provide greater transparency, and eliminate non-value-added requirements.
And again, I'm going with the advocacy for residents. When we say making the process more user-friendly,
For everyone.
yeah, how can we let people know that that's a positive thing for constituents, and that they don't interpret that as we're making it, easier for developers?
Yeah.
It's for the public.
For everyone, it's good, yeah.
The mayor, council,
Yeah.
staff.
Perhaps make the process more transparent and user-friendly.
Well, I've got provide greater
Yeah,
transparency there.
you're right, I'm looking right at it.
And so, under there, we've got consistent public notification requirements and providing additional time for review by the public.
Oh, that's great.
How are we providing additional time? Are we actually?
When we give people time for additional comments, when the record doesn't close.
In the code,
But it's not in the code.
I think what we're doing is, I think it's more the transparency and the clarity is that we're requiring people to get information to us earlier, so it doesn't show up the day before the meeting. So they have better information before the public hearing. And that's what we're looking to do, is like, you've got to have everything into us 15 days ahead of time. So you're not submitting something 3 days ahead of time, like a 300-page exhibit booklet, 3 days before the public hearing.
So can we state that
Yeah, I think we-
somehow?
I think we
put
could
that-
use an example like that, yeah.
So, how late could they submit information before?
That day?
Right before, the morning of?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
As late as they could?
So, and now
I've kind of been
it's,
giving them, it's like, I need it this day.
and now it's 15 days.
And now
and the
proposed
public
is-
would have access to it 15 days.
Provide earlier
7 days.
access.
So they typically will have it 7 days because I need to get it then put up onto the website, put it into the file. So,
For review of submitted plans.
so yeah, the plans will all be ready. If they're going to make a change, it has to be in 15 days. If they're going to do an exhibit booklet, it has to be 15 days. So I can get it all ready to put the packet together. So then when the agenda gets posted, everything's going with the agenda.
Because that's definitely been a practice, that, last-minute submissions. I've been on the other side of that, and you don't have any time
Yeah, it's very.
to reply because that afternoon, didn't you see it added to the website?
Yeah,
Yeah, because sometimes,
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah,
'cause
as an
I'll be
involved
thinking-
constituent, I have,
I
That's
mean,
been a
I
problem.
think many of us have come to public hearings with prepared comments.
and now it's
Prepared
changed.
based on a plan that suddenly,
I've often felt that was very intentional. So,
well, I certainly felt it was a waste of my time preparing against something that was totally changed.
and you end up commenting, but your
Yeah.
comments are not as strong
Yeah.
because you haven't had the time to do the research. You're not the author of the material.
This is something that I think probably doesn't belong here in intent, but belongs, I don't really have this as a highlight in terms of what's changed. And I think this should come out in more detail in the highlights of what's changed. I put some of it in here, but this level of detail needs to be in how we've gone about changing things,
Yeah, and the why,
Yeah.
what this is designed for.
Right. Okay, intent continued. Just updating it with the proper names and, now, we said at a meeting that we moved some items to more appropriate sections of the code. Does someone have an example of that? Because I was reading through and I was having trouble coming up with.
We consolidated public notification in one spot and referenced it in areas, but we didn't list as many
Okay.
details. That's one example. Another example, I think, is pulling some of the plan content details out and putting them in exhibits
Okay.
to make the ordinance more, one, centralized and consistent, but also easier to find information out on it.
And we reorganized and revised Article 4. And I appreciated your language, Tom, on what we mean by statement of intent standards and guidelines.
Okay.
And then we added and expanded some standards and requirements. And I only list 2 here. These are just examples that, it's actually a pretty long list.
It is.
In fact, it probably may be fairer to say many than some.
But when you say expand, a lot of them have been expanded. Not many have been added,
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, I think we've expanded almost every single
yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was good to say that we revised some, just to say that we didn't abandon everything.
Yeah.
Some of them were kept, but we revised them and expanded them. And like the street section has a lot of new additions in it, but it also is based on some of the same processes and techniques that we've used for,
Yeah.
for a while now.
So maybe I'll change this to expanded many standards and requirements and added a few. Yeah. Okay, what we are not proposing to change. One thing that would be helpful, I worry that we sometimes are not all on the same page in terms of what the role of the Lewis Planning Commission is. And I don't know whether, and when I look at the, what's the number in the state code that describes it? It's
Oh, the title.
the title.
22?
Yes. I mean, it doesn't go into a lot of detail, and I'm not sure that it's that language is that helpful to the public. And I just think they're not always clear on the role of the Planning Commission versus the role of mayor and city council. Because our role is to review and provide advice.
Yes, you were an advisory.
City council is the one who's making a decision.
Correct. So typically, since there's been so many new planning commission members, staff is working on trying to get everybody some training on, that, to provide some assistance if you so choose. But we're looking at is what your guys' role is. The planning commission is an advisor role, looking at does it comply with the subdivision code. In some instances, does it comply with like the size of the parking spaces, and then you make a recommendation to mayor and council. Mayor and council is the final authority on the decision for, in this case, a major subdivision.
And the reason I raise this is somewhere in here, I saw a statement that said that the LPC at a certain stage does not have to judge compliance with the code. And I thought we did. I thought we were making a judgment on compliance.
You should be.
I'll do a search on this document to find out where it is. It was in it's in the process area.
Because that's your role, is to, I mean, staff's looking at it for a very detailed compliance. You guys are looking at it slightly higher level, because I'm literally like, did you spell everything right? Like somebody had a note and it referenced, the elementary school instead of the existing project.
Right.
So I'm looking for that level of detail. But you're definitely, you're looking at the more holistic compliance, while staff's doing the, and GMB and the other agencies are looking for the very detailed compliance, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Nancy, I think the statement we're mentioning is under 17019, preliminary review. And it talks about, as part of that first paragraph that says preliminary review is not used to determine final plan compliance, but provides an opportunity to ensure the applicant's aware of the review, discusses and provides recommendations, and on and on. That's a statement that says that the primary role of preliminary review is to exchange information and alert applicants to information, but not that the review can be completed, pointing things out about what needs to be done to comply, but you can move on without verifying that there's a complete plan and it's been verified for compliance.
So they're looking at, think of this, I think this is a good way, as Tom was saying, you're looking to did they meet everything that's required as a preliminary plan? you're not looking at the requirements for a final plan. You're looking at, did they meet the requirements of the preliminary plan? Did they miss one or two items? Because that could happen, but that's, typically, sometimes that then triggers, that'll be, of course, identified and addressed at the time of final. But you're looking to make sure, because you're not recommending anything on a final plan, you're looking at the preliminary plan. So there will be things that are missing, of course, because, they haven't fully engineered the plan yet. Does that make sense?
But you are looking at whether the preliminary plan is compliant.
Correct.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Tom. That was the area that threw me for a little bit of a loop. Thank you. Okay, then the next,
Oh, can I,
Yep.
there's a spelling, city council.
oh,
Unless you're talking about Glenn.
yes, yes. So I was a little, what we're proposing, what are we not proposing to change? I was a little worried about the compliance requirements because I mean, in a sense, we are changing requirements and we aren't saying you don't have to comply with them, it's true, but.
Procedural requirements or, oh no, we are, what am I saying?
I mean,
Yeah.
so we are changing the requirements. We're actually strengthening the requirements. So I think you are changing those.
I think we take
But
that
we're
one
not
out of
proposing
there.
a change or, the standards, no, we're strengthening standards, but we're not weakening anything. That's what, somehow can we make a statement here? What we are not proposing to change,
So
we are not downgrading any present policy. If anything, we're, strengthening, I don't know how to say it.
is this one needed? Because the 22 factors, we are changing
Yeah,
because they've been integrated somewhere else. So
so really the only thing we're not proposing to change is
the role.
the legal role of the Lewis Planning Commission, which we couldn't change anyway.
Or a more very generic statement, like a broad statement, the high standards of the city, of developing in the city of Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, that's up to how you
The
guys.
higher standards
I wonder
for the
if,
privilege of developing within the city of Lewis.
I wonder if we just delete this, because we've got a lot of slides here,
Yeah.
You mean this whole?
this whole slide, and what you've just said, Deborah, I think is important to be stated, but I think we can say that earlier on in terms of the.
People like the idea that not everything's changing.
Yeah.
So I think your intent here on the slide is a good one.
Yeah.
Perhaps the role of citizens in we're actually providing more opportunities, the important role of citizens.
It's changing for the better. It's
Yes.
just unfortunately not changing. Or fortunately,
So if we go back to the intent, I could add something maybe on that we're strengthening and clarifying. We're not, I mean,
You're not lessening.
we're not,
You're
yeah.
strengthening and clarifying, the standards and the intent and, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I will take this slide out. Okay, next.
And where would we integrate about the 22 factors if we're taking this slide out?
Oh,
Because that's a good
we're
statement.
going to see that in a minute. Okay. And in fact, I was worried that it was repetitious because in the slide after the next one, you'll see it.
Okay.
So now we get into just highlighting the proposed changes. And we have modify the process. I want to add in something on the notification and transparency, which won't appear in this set of things, exactly what we discussed earlier on the earlier slide about notification. So this is, in terms of the process, the things that I've called out, and, before getting into this, I think there'll be, a caveat of, this is not an exhausted list. It's called highlights because it's at a high level, and it's
Yes.
calling out things, and there may be something that's critically important to you that's changing that's not here. That's why we're giving you a complete copy of everything that you can look at, and that's why we have all of these tables,
Right at the beginning with, and I know it's already crossed out, rename preliminary consent, instead adding preliminary review to the process.
Well, we've added the pre-meeting. Preliminary review, the content of it is pretty much the same as the content of preliminary consent.
Can we,
But it confused people because they thought we were actually
Right.
consenting to a plan.
which we were not, right, that we never had the authority to.
Yeah.
All we do is make a recommendation, yes.
Getting back to our transparency and easier to understand.
Yes, exactly.
But in particular, this one could set off some concerns, I think, by saying, so.
What would be the, say more about that.
Replacing preliminary consent with preliminary review to better reflect
The purpose of the stage?
or reflect the recommendations from the LPC. I just think better, I
How
think the
about the
value
purpose of
added.
this stage and the responsibility of the LPC? Because we're not responsible to,
Yeah, and the responsibility there. And the role of the LPC or responsibility.
Right, but those aren't changing. Remember?
Right, to better reflect the to better reflect.
So better
Sorry, I
reflect it,
got
not
lost in-
changing the role or responsibility.
Gotcha.
and then we're requiring a pre-meeting, and we're offering an optional conceptual review meeting. We're involving the MCC earlier, and we're standardizing public notification.
I hate to be too wordy, and I always am, but on the second point, the requiring a pre-meeting and require a pre-meeting and offer an optional conceptual review meeting to the point I was bringing up earlier about to give feedback to applicant before they become overinvested.
Does that need to be on the slide, or is that something we can verbally?
Well, a lot of people are probably just going to go back and read the slide and never see. That's why yes, ideally, in a perfect world, people will come, people will see the presentation, but even reporters may not. And this is the document that they may end up writing their stories off of. And I think we have to acknowledge that's a possibility.
So we don't get this slide too wordy. I think we pull out standardized public notification to a separate slide, and then it's easier to add these words on that are really more around the process, whereas
Okay.
notification is going to apply to a whole series of different stages and items in the process.
I want to make sure that people who are giving feedback understand the gestalt here.
Yeah, and that gives us more space to draw out what we've done in terms of public notification.
Yeah.
Because right now, it doesn't say the 7 days thing, for example.
And that's for the agenda.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but for materials to be reviewed.
Yes.
So it's agenda and materials, right? Is that actually in here anywhere, though?
The agenda has to be posted? No, that's in state code.
But
Is it the
it's
14
not,
day?
I'm worried about not just the agenda, but the materials.
The materials we put into the code. we did.
But the posting of the material, the public posting and public access to the materials.
When we discussed it, I said, don't make it 15 days because if it comes in.
No, for 7 days, I thought.
Yeah, because that's when, so I'm hoping to get everything 15 days per the new code. 7 days I have to post it. And then typically, that's a Wednesday, and typically that Friday, I get everything, all the packet items onto the agenda and posted. Because depending on what it looks like, I just don't want to be held to, I didn't get it done on the day the agenda got posted because I was working on 3 other projects that, but
And do we have it stated? Because we should. You know, it's not unreasonable to know if people can't get it to 15 days in advance, they should be delaying the process and rolling it over to the next month.
At 15 days, it doesn't come in. It's just then I need it, and then I need to do a quick review. If Charlie needs to do a quick review, we need to double check it.
What I'm saying is
So then I
why,
have it note to post it onto so then I can post the agenda, and then I do reports.
yes, I understand
So
all of that.
between the 15 days and the 7 days, I don't always have the ability to get the reports done. So like, I think the concern here is what I'm hearing, you can tell me I'm wrong, is that the intent is to have everything up to the public that the day the agenda gets posted. Typically what happens is that happens that Friday, not that Wednesday.
Well, right.
And I'm
But
concerned
see,
is
my
if we
concern
put it
is
in the
that
code
it would
and
not
I
necessarily
fail to
be
do
that.
then we are going to have a legal problem.
I'm not concerned that it be, you know, if you post the agenda 2 days early and the materials aren't there, that's fine. My concern is that the public has 7 days to review the materials.
Okay, so typically, if something comes in, I try to get it posted to the website, so it has a website. I do my best to get it there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no criticism of that.
So
None
my concern
whatsoever.
is if we put it in the code and I fail to do that, I think that opens us to legal issues, that we didn't follow the proper process.
I guess my point is not that end of it. My point is the 15 days.
Oh.
And requiring that the materials are into you 15 days in early so that you and Charlie do have the time to be able to get it up on the website within the 7 days.
But I think what she's saying is, even if it comes in 15 days early, because of
Workload and other concerns, she may not get it posted 7 days in advance.
It might be 6 days, it might be 5 days. It'll definitely be there, but it might not hit that 7-day mark. And I'm just concerned is 5 years, 10 years down the road, I'm not here, there's a new planner, if they can't meet that mark, I think it opens up, and unfortunately Glenn had to leave, I think this opens us to a legality that I don't want staff to be the reason something gets
But I guess my question then is,
We do our best, and it might not be tied to the agenda, it might actually be on the website.
it isn't, I mean,
So-
aren't there two things two big categories of things that are getting posted? One is what they have prepared, and the second is yours and Charlie's report on that.
Yes.
And so what they've prepared, if it's come in 15 days in advance,
We'll have that.
there should be no reason why you couldn't post it 7 days in advance.
So perhaps we can
So just
promise
that.
just that, but
Yeah.
not your reports.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I think it's unreasonable, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unreasonable to expect that all the reports come in, but
The
that
submissions.
the submissions from the developers, what needs to be on that website at 7 days.
Okay.
And I think that we should add that, but how can we write that so that we're not hanging you up
Yeah.
on that, or a future planner?
I will run that by Tom and we'll come up with an idea.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Yeah, because this is not about making
For
life
Tuesday, but
harder
figure that one out.
for the city employees. This is about making sure that the developers are not pulling a fast one and sliding their stuff in late.
No.
That's closing that loophole.
Oh, that we can take
And
care
I
of.
think in
It's
many
just-
ways, what the public is most interested in.
In is what the developer
that.
has
Yes.
put forward, and
They don't want to walk into a meeting.
Yeah.
And I've been at that meeting, and, oh, the plan's different.
Yeah.
Oh, we changed the plan this afternoon. And, you know, the attorneys for the neighbors now have have hired, they've prepared something that's no longer relevant.
Yeah, no, that we can take care of. So it's
Okay.
just typically
Okay.
pulling everything, all the reports together.
I'm going to pull
good,
this
we're
out.
good.
I'm going to pull this out to a separate slide. And then the next one is the changes we've made to the restructure the requirements section. I think, what happened here?
Is something missing?
This is an old version. I'm so sorry. Tom, you sent in detail explaining each of these, and I edited it in, and somehow this is not the copy that got saved and sent. So the main change on this one is for each, the process we followed is we identified categories of requirements, and we grouped the requirements under those categories, and for each category, we did a statement of intent. And on what Tom prepared, if you look on page 1 of his document, I included his definition. So intent are statements that describe the purpose for each category. The intent statements are used by the Planning Commission during the preliminary review to advise. Standards are provisions that apply to most applications and are required to be met. They are phrased with shall. Some provisions include a list of options that can be used to satisfy requirements, and then guidelines are provisions that should be considered but may not apply to all proposals. And as part of the review process, applicants are required to consider the provisions. If applicable, guidelines can be applied, if applicable, guidelines can be applied as conditions of approval.
So getting that content.
And that
in here.
content will be on
Yeah.
here.
And I think that's really good. I've actually gotten verbal feedback from people who've kind of been following the work here. And there are a lot of citizens in Lewis who definitely are aware of the problems with our shoulds. And, I literally had someone say to me, I hope you get rid of all the shoulds and do shalls. And we're like, yeah, because that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're watching or if they're hearing from somebody else, but
Yeah. We're working on
I think we cleaned up, there's probably one left in there somewhere, but I think we cleaned up most, if not all of them.
it. Yeah. And then here's where I'm covering the 20 of the 22. And then we also considered factors identified in the comprehensive plan to make sure we were incorporating those. And I think some things like open space, et cetera, came from the comprehensive plan. This is the wrong version. Oh, no, it's okay. So then, you can skip the next slide.
and are we providing, is this something that we are going to be providing to people at a station? Yeah.
Yes. And you can skip the next slide and go on to site design. So this is just trying to give a high-level view of what changes we've made to the standards. So I've tried to pull out what I thought was the most relevant that people might be concerned about or interested in. So we're saying you have to be oriented towards streets or common areas, and you have to respect privacy, solar access, and we went setbacks of 5 feet for garages. And then site suitability, the lot layout and building placement to minimize impact on natural historic features, wetlands, and floodplain. And lighting requirements apply to light sources and placement to ensure optimum safety and efficiency while limiting glare to adjacent properties and disruption to natural habitats and the nighttime sky.
Question?
Yes.
So, this is transitioning over to the actual stations, but who's handling that station of those various things? Is that Tom or Janelle or Tom and Janelle?
Janelle seems to be
You
raising
can't
her
see-
hand.
You can't see you don't have eyes in the back of your head, but Janelle is pointing at herself right now.
okay.
Okay?
So is that true all the way through 26E? The next
We'll
two
get there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just appreciate you pulling out the highlights, because I had that on my list of things to do for my sections. Just,
But take a look at these and see if I've missed anything that you
yeah.
think is an
Yeah.
important highlight, because there's no pride of authorship here, so And then landscaping, I tried to pull out, these were things, this is where I was relying heavily, Tom, on what you provided.
And I feel like this is one we're going to get a lot of feedback on, because we just have a lot of people who know far more than I do about gardening and plants.
And I hope we get some of them at the meeting, so.
Yeah, I'm thinking like Melanie Moser is very good on this, even when we go into the LPC. She's got a lot of depth of,
And
Rodney Robinson is
our
another
tree
one.
commissioner we should, Marty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Marty was interested in this. She did say she would try to be there, is that correct?
She did. and
Marty Thompson, if you're
She
watching.
can also provide additional comments. And that's who, the landscaping section, that really does fall under the Parks and Rec Commission.
Yeah.
So
And that's
why-
where they had the most questions.
Yes, and that's where they have the majority of the expertise, because that's what they do. So, so that one does fall to them.
Should we have someone from Parks and Rec or Marty actually at the table?
So I'm hoping to have Janet Reeves, Parks and Marina
That would be
Administrator.
good. That would be
I'm
good.
I figured we'd get into that when we started talking about
Yeah, okay.
process and flow of the meeting. Workshop.
Okay, and then open space. I'll get rid of the majority of weather conditions here.
Yes.
Any additions or changes to any of this in terms of, I think it's worthwhile calling out the percentages, because I think we want to have a discussion of those, and, we as a committee have have had a variety of views on the percentages, so.
Yeah, definitely want to hear from the public on that,
Yeah.
because, I know I've expressed that I think this is not adequate, and, looking at that chart that you distributed to us, Janelle, from other municipalities, and seeing that our percentages are lower than other communities along the coast is concerning to me. Ours are less stringent than Rehoboth Beach.
Not for,
Not for major subdivision. Yeah.
Janelle, did your chart show open space requirements? I thought it showed
Setbacks, lot coverage.
lot coverage.
Yeah, there's lot coverage.
So,
Yeah.
open space would be the space that would be outside
Yes.
of, the backyards of these things, so.
But I think in Lewis, there's a very high-level statement here. We have to be careful, because a lot of our standards were established from how historic the town is and the density in downtown, and really should not be applied. It should be a very different calculation as we get to the beach or areas in North Lewis where I live, or over towards Gill's Neck. Should be a very, inverse relation, almost an inverse calculation of what is downtown.
So, for a subdivision, if there's 20% open space, when lots are being defined, and if each of those lots has a maximum coverage of
65%.
65%, that open space area is not considered within the lot, right?
No, because open space is a separate parcel of land that's
Right.
owned and maintained by the homeowners association.
Now, when we see, do we know what the open space requirements are in Rehoboth?
It's almost irrelevant because
Because they don't have, yeah.
they don't have any
So
subdivisions.
I guess kind of where my calculation is going is if you have 20% open space, you have
Plus, right,
60% of 80%, which is 48% of the whole lot, right? Coverage, you're down to like 50, under 50% coverage.
right. Well, as an average,
Holistically for the developer.
Holistically for the plot of land, yeah.
but that does leave, when you have those high lot coverage percentages, it leaves situations, like we see now along Pilot Town with the reserve and literally homes that are new homes being built right up to the swale, it looks like, even though I understand that their setback goes probably down to the middle of the swale or beyond it. It sure feels like we're building to the end of a lot when it looks like that.
Yeah.
So I think we just have to do everything we can do and listen to public input on this.
Yeah. And that's why I think it's so important to have those percentages there, so we call those
Yes.
out to discuss.
And I won't beat a dead horse on that, but I definitely, I think I hope we will, and I think we will.
I think we will too. Okay, on to streets. I was worried, Tom, that we weren't, we call out the percentages here, because we are permitting, I think it would be good to call out the changes that are being made in the widths of the streets, and why. Because
Yeah, I guess I was just trying to figure out the balance of getting in too far into the weeds with a summary document, but I think that it's a balance. It's really important to get it right. Earlier, I think Deborah mentioned that this may be the only document someone looks at, and that's probably relevant.
yeah.
I'm wondering if, Charlie, can you look at this and since you made a lot of those changes, maybe phrase it in the way that what's changed or what hasn't without getting too deep into it?
Sure.
And I think if you look at the open space where we've pulled out the specifics on percentages, and we want to still say, like, really what's changed in terms of the streets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried to mention in the narrative that it was being changed. We looked at other communities, and that was some of the references, but really it was the intent of the changes was to try and balance the need for impervious versus pervious surfaces, part of it, and then interconnectivity and other things. But I think a lot of the changes were refining it, the road width primarily based on the function of that road and the need for on-street parking and other things. But how much is really needed, because all of those all of that impervious surface leads to greater runoff.
Yeah, for people to just understand that when you hear the streets are getting narrower, the first thing you think is maybe, oh, we're making more space to develop.
Yes.
And we're actually trying to pave less.
And provide safer streets.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
I am so sorry to do this, but sometimes it has to sit and cook for a minute in your brain. Going back to the 26E open space and to the whole section within the code, when we're talking about, so we've gotten rid of can be used during a majority of weather conditions. What if we just called it more specifically what that space is, which is, pardon me, using green technology, stormwater best management practices graded into the natural terrain to provide passive recreational space. Is that more fitting to,
Is it just passive? Because it could be active recreational space there too.
could it?
Yeah.
Like, I'm wondering if we could just say recreational space.
Yeah, I think the way it's currently written says recreational use. which includes active and passive. And, because you could probably do both depending on how it's being used.
If someone says that active recreational spaces, pickleball courts, though, we have a problem because they're obviously impervious,
But if it's soccer field,
right? Is that considered
A tot
active?
lot,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yep.
yeah. Or, yeah, a tot lot playground kind of thing, you can,
Right, is,
you know.
okay.
Yeah. Never worry about going back.
Maybe just recreational space.
Yeah.
Maybe just the word recreational might
Yeah,
be helpful there for people to understand. Okay.
okay, then water utility,
Perhaps I can do what we talked about for streets for each one of these. I was planning on doing
that would be
that.
great.
Yeah.
How soon can we get that? Because we need to get this to like a final document fairly quickly.
Do we need to meet again? Is honestly, I hate to say that, but,
About that too.
well, we do have LPC canceled.
Yes.
We can continue this meeting, we just cannot schedule another meeting because we cannot set an agenda.
Oh, right.
Oh, so we can, please define how we can continue a meeting.
Well, we can go as long as we want today.
Okay.
I don't think we can recess to
We
another
can't
day.
continue it
Another
to
date, no.
part 2
No, I don't think we
of
can.
today's meeting.
No, I'm not sure the subcommittee can do that.
Okay,
Okay.
fair enough.
Okay, well, let's beaver on, yeah.
We don't have we can't do executive session.
What we can do is, if Charlie can get me these changes, I can turn it around fairly quickly, and you can send comments in to Janelle.
Yeah, I just need the final copy
So you still have another...
Monday
yeah, kick
morning,
the
so
can,
then I
yeah.
can make copies of everything. And today's Tuesday, right?
Tuesday, yeah.
And I just want to firm up our roles better, too. I feel like,
We're going to get to that.
okay, yeah, I feel like I took it too easy of a role, so I need to bite
You
it.
have for another role.
I'm sure you, okay, good.
You're not just saying hello, okay?
I'm a good greeter, though, I really am.
But we still need the greeting, but then the greeting won't move on to, so the objective is,
Let's get through this, and then we're going to go
Okay.
through the stations and the logistics and everything. So, Charlie, when can you get me these changes?
I was gonna say latest, like noon on Friday, maybe before. My week's pretty chock full at this point, next couple days.
Yeah. Again, I just need a final version, and if you need until like noon on Monday, because all I have to do is copy it and have it ready to go on a flash
I
drive.
know, I'll have it to you by Friday,
For Tuesday morning.
yeah.
If you can get it to me Friday morning, is that possible before noon?
I'm hoping I can, yeah.
Okay.
I really will try
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah, worst case is you get it to me like Monday afternoon, I can still, all I have to do is run copies and save it to a flash drive.
Okay. Okay, and the same for sewer?
Yeah. Very exciting subject. Yeah, I'll pull that.
Okay.
Hey, Mayor.
And then electrical,
Same thing,
stormwater and electrical?
yes.
Shall we pause? Do you,
Excellent. If you're done before 3, drop in, I'll talk to you.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Sorry, thank you.
no problem. And then I didn't have other utilities down, and we probably should, but what is the significant change there? I had trouble identifying any. I mean, it seemed to be they have to notify, that the developer has to notify the city if they're not going to put in
Yeah,
underground.
We added natural gas.
yeah, but I don't think there were like significant changes, so I'm not overly worried about that being
Okay.
here because we will have a station for utilities.
Okay.
That Charlie's in charge of.
Hey, one thing that I heard on the radio, I think that another town is doing somewhere in the United States, is requiring consideration of like renewable energy sources on subdivisions, like solar, some area of solar farm or a windmill or something like that. Just tossing it out there for
That would be
your,
a guideline.
for your greater thinking, yeah. I know, I was thinking about that for other utilities, actually.
There you go.
Then for the next one, for highlights of definitions, I broke it into the areas where we added and pretty much wrote new, put in new definitions for lighting, open space, lot and lot grading, landscaping, streets, and then I had this catch-all of other. And then identified the ones where all we did was we copied a definition from another section of the code, because we're using that word, and we should have the definitions for this, for this section altogether.
Bless you.
God bless.
And, bless you, and when we say 170, is I'm looking at the term, wondering the terminology here, is 170 a section of the code? I mean,
Chapter.
It's a chapter.
chapter, okay. So we got them from other chapters.
Yeah, because it's chapter 170, then you get into the articles, and then you get into the
Right.
section. So it's like, but the sections just continue on. They don't start over in the new articles.
And then the ones where we simply edited the definitions.
Is that under, I think we're on the highlights of proposed changes, added definitions? Is it-
Yes.
So regarding other, the last one on there, site distance, it's actually SIGHT.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was SITE in the old code for a long time.
Yeah, because the intent is that you can see around.
Yes, exactly.
That's okay, I've messed that up many times.
You have it right there. I just want to make sure that was my transcription issue.
No, this is the first go around.
Good.
I actually picked it up a couple weeks ago.
Okay, and then the final slide of highlights are kind of, we're getting down to enforcement, where I guess I should say no criminal penalty, is that it? Or no incarceration? What?
I'd say no criminal penalty.
And did we revise the fines?
The fine, no, we didn't. They're in there. It's $500 plus other, so we didn't change that.
I have to ask, is the fine sufficient? I thought we were talking about changing the fine.
Glenn is working on
that one. So you can leave that and like potentially, looking at revising the fines.
Why don't we say reviewing the fines?
Yes.
Okay. And then the public has a chance to say if they think 500 is too little, too much, And then we updated the titles of city staff and committees for the city planner, city engineer, JSDRC, H-Park. I didn't think there were any other name changes of that sort. Is that true? And then, now the last thing, 2 slides are kind of transitioning to get people.
Was there anything with building inspector?
He either stays, so in some sections, the building official stays, and other times it's replaced by the city planner.
So I divided this into, okay, it's like now we're moving into the feedback, and we're ways to engage. The first stage of engagement really is understanding what we're doing, and we're going to have handouts on the proposed new code and the existing code. Are we having physical handouts?
Yeah, I want to talk to you guys about that, so.
Okay.
Yep,
On the new process versus the existing process?
we got that one.
On where the existing, I'm going to say 20 factors are incorporated into the proposed new code.
Yep.
Are there any other handouts that I'm missing here?
If you just want to be generic and say there'll be handouts at the stations, just in case we add something or, forget something or.
Yeah.
I think that way there's just, people understand that we were encouraging them to go to the stations and there are
Yeah.
handouts at the stations regarding each of those tables. Does that work?
And then I say, The other thing you can do is visit the whatever number of stations or tables we have to ask questions and understand. And I thought we'd list what the different stations were, but this list may not be correct. And then there's a video of this presentation that's going to be posted on the city website.
Yes, and if they miss this presentation, the slideshow will be a continuous loop during, not the presentation, but the slides themselves will be a continuous loop on the TVs.
Yes, actually, I do think adding the details is really needed on the slides.
Yeah. And then, but what we really want is feedback, and you can come up to the microphone and ask questions or provide feedback. You can visit the stations or tables, wherever we're calling them, I'll change it to stations, and use the dots and sticky notes to provide feedback. You can send written comments to the subcommittee, and here's where I said, please send in by December 15th, 2021. I didn't check what day of the week that is.
It's a Wednesday.
Okay, that's good. Or use the online form to provide comments.
Yes, because all of this will be, they can do online. And we have versions of the forms that they can take with them, and we'll actually have boxes. I've got a staff member creating boxes so they can just put their comments into the box.
Okay, and then I'm going to add in, send written comments, use the online form, or use the comment forms that we have at the meeting. And we've got one for subdivision code and one for general comments.
Is the 15th of December the same day as the planning commission meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So should we try to make it
Maybe we should
go after? Or sooner, because,
or sooner, so we can give,
Yeah, if you want to do the 13th, which would be the Monday,
yeah, let's do the,
just.
I doubt we'll get that many in on the last day, but,
Okay.
but then it'll give us a chance to,
You'd be surprised.
compile
To that
stuff.
last minute.
yeah.
is that enough time for you to know? Because you're going to have to probably compile them, right?
Yeah, I won't be here.
We won't be here.
I won't be here. Still. So I'll be gone that week. But I can make sure somebody else is looking at them and then to scan them.
Okay.
And do their best to stay on top of it.
A couple of logistic questions with the first two bullet items. So, people are going to be walking around to the stations, but there's going to be a microphone set up. How's that work?
There's going to be a microphone set up at the
Okay.
head of the room. Oh, here, wait, yeah, can you put that up, or?
I can't. I apologize. This was the
I
last
guess my
minute.
question is, are people going to the microphone while people are milling about at the station?
Yes.
Yes.
So how's that going to work? People at the stations will just be quiet for a moment while the person at the microphone?
So I think that's something we need to figure out, because I think we want people to encourage, I think if they have a specific question about something at the table, we send them to that table so that we can get that written comment. But we'll need somebody at, and maybe if they want to give public comment, verbal comments, but I think we also want to encourage them to go to the comment form so they write down their comments. So the way I have laid this out, my horrible, we've got the door here at the Rollins Center. We have a welcome sign-in sheet, because somebody mentioned having a sign-in sheet. The black kind of rectangle items are the TVs, so you can see where the TVs are in the room. So the little Pac-Man people are the chairs, and then we've got the podium in the center. We will be reducing the number of chairs because we're going to have people moving.
Right.
So just keep that in mind. So you hit the welcome table, and then the way I have this laid out is then they would go to the process table. And for the process table, this is going to be a dot exercise. So I know people watching can't see it, but we'll have the draft process and the current process up on easels, and we'll have a sticky note for them so they can go take a look at it. And I'm just going to turn this around so people can see. So kind of like this. So this is the dot exercise. You let us know which one you like. So somebody's answering questions about the process. I've starred the new items so you can kind of see what's going on. So you'd just be, you just, this one, you know, somebody's like, hey, what are questions about the process? Which one do you like? Place a dot on the bottom.
Yeah.
And then we would move into the 20 criteria.
And that'll be someone explaining kind of the differences to people walking
Yes,
through a
so
little.
these are all be manned stations,
Which
or
might be
person
right, we don't
stationed.
know.
Somebody will be at the station explaining that.
And who will be explaining that one?
Who would you like explaining that one?
Which one, the process?
The process.
I'm comfortable with the process, but
Yeah.
Okay. That one we haven't, because Joe unfortunately can't be there now, so we're
think
down to
that'd be
person.
good for you.
Or I can get a staff person to do that if you're not comfortable with that.
I'm comfortable with
Let me
it.
know.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
don't know if there's something that I would,
Was there?
more pressing. Let's
Let's
we
keep
can
going and
decide.
then, yeah, then we can, yeah.
So then at the far end, where typically council sits, or and commission sits, we'll have the criteria table printed out like this, so you can see the criteria. We'll have a handout. We'll have a handout of both the process as well. We'll have a handout of
Okay.
this. I just took
Yeah.
and printed it, and like, if you want to put sticky, we'll have pens and sticky notes, so if you can leave your comments, and then, like, I'm gonna try and send it to you, so you can put them all around, you know? So it's like, oh, I have comment on number 10, you know, number 10's on the other page, but, you know, they can leave their comments there. So this ends up being 3 different ones, because I wanted it big enough so people
Yeah.
could see it. And then
is there also on that table going to be, you know, a few lay-arounds of the printed,
Yes.
full printed code so that they can look it up?
Yes.
But so that they can also look it up while they're there and
Yes.
just see exactly how things are.
Do we want people to?
I think it's easy to do that when you're looking at
you
that.
don't need to.
There's just a lot of different ways to provide feedback. You got the sticky notes,
Yep, we got the sticky notes,
microphone,
and then, yep,
online, the public notice or the public hearing open till, what's that? That's
that's just if they want to submit comments.
submit a letter or something, yeah.
So,
And then the dots. I'm just trying to think of it from my station of the utility stuff, like, I'll probably have some similar list, but, and I can see them putting sticky notes, but I don't know what the dots would be for. Oh, I really like that.
well, I was thinking,
Red or green, I would think.
yeah.
so I was thinking we just have the one dot exercise, which is, which do you prefer, which process do you like better?
Okay.
You know, to get that. And then everything else would be kind of a sticky note, and every station gets a different color sticky. So you're not taking the pink sticky and then, so we can track the sticky notes so we go with that topic. The next one I had was the streets utilities table, so I put all the utilities together and the streets together,
And that's Charlie, right?
and that's Charlie. And then I did the
Just a thought though, if we want to, you know, be making it engaging for people, ex-elementary teacher here, if we wanted to do the engagement with the dots, the really simple way is red and green dots. Because, you know, red obviously is something, I don't care for this, I'm liking this. Or red, yellow, you know, not sure, I need more information, I don't understand.
Or generally, I may like it, but there's something I don't like, or, you know.
Yeah.
The intent of the sticky notes is for people to provide comments on it. So if I'm at the process table and I've got comments, I can just write a sticky note and put it on my, or no, sorry, that's the, if I've got questions about the criteria table, I can just write my comment right there on that sticky note and put it on the board, so that comment has been saved.
With the process, because you're gonna have them side by side,
I think you can use just one color, it's the number, because you're voting under one of
Right,
them, you
okay.
know. But for the streets and lighting and things like that, I kind of think it still might be nice to have red and green and people to indicate whether they, like, do they like the idea of providing all this stuff on lighting?
Okay. We can do that, we can, because I've got
I mean,
4 different
what do you
colors.
think?
How does that, or does that just make it impossible to quantify and collect feedback on?
'Cause I was thinking how you were thinking, Deborah, and I totally get what you're thinking, because it's very easy, like, don't like, but I'm trying to get,
Real feedback.
what don't you like about it? What do you like about it? What did we miss? So we can take all of that and then get back together and put that back into the ordinance.
And then the last thing I'm thinking about too, which has to do with what size are our sticky notes? And I ask this, we have a lot of elderly people who maybe don't have wonderful handwriting, and I'm worried that, well, they can have more than one, clearly.
Yeah, we've
But
got,
I want to make sure we can read
you
them.
could do a demo of how you,
How you write on
Things
sticky?
together to make a longer one. You know, I mean, I've been at things where people have had like.
I taught special ed, so I'm like, did you get the ones with the lines on them?
And again, if they have a lot of comments,
That's a good idea.
We're gonna have just a comment table
Special ed.
that they have a form they can write and fill in.
Yeah.
So we've given them the lines and the ability to, and we've made it kind of larger, so you know, the larger handwriting. So you can, you know, if you felt like the sticky note was just too limiting, here is your comment form. You can pick your topic, you know, tell us what you think, fold it up into the box it goes. We've got your comments.
You know, or maybe an easy way too, just to kind of guide people a little bit with the sticky notes is, you know, it can be feedback or questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because a question is a really good place to, you know, a sticky note is a really good way to write a question.
Yeah, and that's also why it's like Charlie's gonna be there for the streets and utilities, because he's gonna be the best person to answer those questions.
Absolutely. But it also, you know, when they put a question up, it may put that question up for another person to think about. And that's, with the rotation, is really helpful too.
Yep, so,
I think it's gonna be important for, like, folks who are
Handling these stations, to keep reminding people, we want your feedback. So if you like this, please put something up saying you like it. Because there's always a bias that people only put up things that they object to. And they're not there saying that, oh, well, you know, so you may have 4 people who had a question or objected to it, and, you know, 20 who really liked it, but they liked it, so they didn't have anything to say.
so maybe,
Yeah.
so I really like that, and maybe it's like when they come up to give comments, it's like, tell us what you like about it.
Yeah.
Tell us what's working, you know, tell us, you know, so start off with, what do you like about it? What don't you like about it? And what's missing? And maybe that's what everybody who's in charge of that is, what do you like about it? What don't you like about it? And what's missing? Because I think that covers everything. And if they only have something they like about it, great. If they only have something they don't like about it, great. And if we forgot something, tell us what we forgot.
Okay, I'm right now thinking out of the box, maybe too far out of the box, okay? But, you know, what if we had a prize, a drawing at the end of this, where you get an entry for every time you put a sticky up, you get a little entry ticket.
So what are we giving away and who's paying for
I
it?
have plenty of wine.
I'll give, I have something.
Joe can give us, in his absence, Joe can give us the old
And
Halloween
maybe that's what we
candy.
do is at each station is
You
we've
get-
got candy,
Oh, that's a good idea.
because food gets people to show up.
I will offer free passes to Lewis Lights, which of course is free.
I know, I was gonna say that, yeah, I like that one.
I mean, I'm happy to purchase candy.
I like the candy idea.
Yeah.
You know, I think in every station can have a different candy. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, you signed in, would you like a Skittles, or, you know.
You know, I was thinking about all those kind of workshop things where you have the, the box that has the, like question,
Quadrant, yeah.
Positive, negative, something I like, something I have a question about, I don't know, that sort of thing. Maybe I'm getting a little too.
Well, I was thinking something similar to that. I have my bullet point list of street items, and then, but leave, a significant amount over here on my board for all the Post-it notes, because if you start putting them on the words themselves, and if there's enough people, you won't be able to see the words after, or there won't be
Right.
enough room.
Or we'll have a separate, so what we can do is, because I'm trying to make sure we have enough easels, they're getting ordered. We also have, we can put Post-it note boards, the sticky pads onto the wall, and we can put the sticky notes onto the wall, onto that board. So it's like you'll have your board with your bullets, and then they can go behind and stick their sticky notes to the wall behind you.
Okay.
And if you get so full on one of those, you can have another one up. Yeah.
And I'm just throwing out ideas, or like what Charlie's talking about, he's making the bullet points of all his differences. If you want to bring back in the dots at this point, you could have, I like this change, I do not like this change. I'm not sure, I need further clarification. I don't fully understand this. Might be, and sometimes doing different response techniques at different tables gets more involvement.
I actually think that all this that we're talking about is going to turn out good, because you're going to get a lot of feedback going around from people, and they're going to feel like they're, providing useful feedback.
When they have to think about what to do at each table, though, it gets people more thinking and more engaged.
Yeah, and it's a better way than just standing at the podium,
Yeah.
And not everyone can do that.
And
There's so
not
many
everybody's
people,
not comfortable with that,
there's
so
so many
that's
people who
why
can't do that effectively.
I think we also want to encourage, okay, we have this option, but we're going to encourage you to write it down, because this will I can scan this, I can put this on the website with all the public comments for this to come. And if you just have general comments about the things we're not talking about, we have a form for that and a box for that too.
What would really be nice too is to add on this with the comment forms. Just additionally, like if they don't drop them that night,
The address.
the address, or can be dropped at City Hall. There are lots of people who would come and drop things, and create a box out in the lobby or whatever, can just be given at the front desk.
Yeah, because if we keep the boxes, we can just put them.
Out front, and they can just drop in either box.
There is a drop-off box there.
There is, outside.
Yeah.
But if they want to come into the building, and we'll have,
Well, and I know we're trying not to have, with COVID, too many people dropping into the building.
yeah, but we've got room in the front.
In the anteroom.
Yes. We can make that work. I like
So
that.
quick question.
After,
Because I think some people really like to absorb and study, and I think we have a lot of very, academic people who aren't going to give you the instant.
yeah, that's why I'm like, we'll have this, but I'm trying to encourage the Post-it note and the sticky dots and the forms, because this will be like, if I'm just going to talk, it's my gut reaction, but if I'm talking to you or you or you or me and Tom, we're getting that, and we might get more out of the person than my initial gut reaction. So my thought is, and you can tell me if you don't like it, to encourage them before they make comments into the microphone to go to the tables and to ask questions, because that's what we want. So I've got Charlie doing streets and utilities. I was going to do landscaping, open space, and lighting, so put them together. And then we're going to have a table that's just for comments. So they literally will circle the room, and out they go. So they can come in here and go out here, or come back out through the doors, because the doors are the right. So it's my 5-minute exercise.
I have one comment on the layout.
Go.
If you hold it up. I'm just wondering, because we will have people doing the microphone at some point, and I feel like it's going to be hard for the table behind there. I mean, to have it right in the middle seems problematic to me. And I'm wondering if we couldn't have the welcome table at the back of the room, like at the bottom.
Where the closets
See
are.
where the closets are? Yeah.
I was just trying, you come in and you like hit the welcome table right away.
That's what I was trying,
And that's the best place to put hand sanitizer.
and here.
Or maybe at every table.
We can, I'll see how much hand sanitizer we have.
Direct people to the back there, can't we?
So, again, this is just a rough layout. I've got to see what actually functions in the room. I was going to go set up the night before to see how it all functions. Because we might be able to do more in the corners, because we've got room.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was just trying to get the flow right.
Yeah.
It's definitely, because when we're at LPC, we have 3 tables or 4 tables.
Yeah, 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, if we push the tables further back towards the windows in the walls.
You could go more.
We've got more room.
Instead of microphone table, you could go microphone tables.
Yeah,
But
so
who is the microphone talking to? Or maybe the microphone goes up in between some tables, and if you want to come up, it becomes more egalitarian, that everyone has, you're a leader too, and get to,
Speak out to the crowd.
yeah.
because I really want to encourage getting it in writing.
I want to get down to
That's
the
to me.
stations that we have too. So we
I
have,
can make a copy. Oh, sorry, didn't get far enough.
Quick question.
So that we have everything manned up.
We're
Yeah.
gonna get all these different forms of feedback from all these different sources. I guess this is gonna fall on you to take all that and organize it into something that the committee can utilize then?
Yep.
Okay.
So we're going to take it all back. And that's where we can put the stickies on the rolled up, on the paper, because then we can just roll it right up.
Yeah.
Everything stays together. And then I can go through it, I can take pictures, send it to Tom, and then we can go like, okay, these are the main things we heard. These are the way out there items that it's like, okay, that we can't address. And it's like, oh, we didn't think about this. So we'll just take them all, put them into like a list of everything we heard, because we'll take every note. Best writing possible. We're going to ask people to please print.
We do have a lot of retired doctors and lawyers in this community, so I would just like to warn you about that.
That's okay, I can read chicken scratch.
So we've
I've
got,
gotten good at that.
if we talk about the sign, sorry to interrupt. So we have Charlie on streets and utilities.
Yes,
We have Janelle on land, open space and lighting.
yes. I was hoping Tom would be comfortable doing the 22 conversion. Thank you, Tom. Tell us what kind of candy you want.
M&Ms are good, but
Hey,
with peanuts.
They make them with almonds now too,
Yeah.
then we have
No, that sounds good.
the remaining, Deborah, are process and comment table and welcome.
And I can get staff,
Like, I think, I should say, I
Yeah,
don't
should
say
do
anyone
the
could do
welcome.
welcome, but
yeah,
staff could,
just
right?
like, give them the process. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
please stop here, and, the presentation will start. I'll give them a script to kind of
Okay.
go off of and kind of understand what it is, because we might have a couple people coming in at different times.
Yeah, I can do the process chart. I'm very comfortable with that. Or, I can't see all of them in front of me right now, but can we get through the list one more time?
Here, take that.
I can make here.
We've got welcome table, process table,
I will email my
20 criteria, streets and utilities, landscaping, open space and lighting, comments table, and then we have the open mic.
Nancy did put them on a PowerPoint and just send them to you, and
Perfect.
we need to enlarge them.
Yeah, I'm gonna do 24 by 36. So I was just asking Charlie, what does he want on his?
If I send that to you, will you take care of enlarging it, printing it out, and, okay, good, excellent.
I've been printing today, and I ordered some foam board, and I ordered a box of pens.
What would really be ideal is if we had,
Easels, I'm a little worried.
Okay.
I know that it's unrealistic, but if we had,
Okay.
like like iPads or, laptops, and people could text to speech in them, and then you would just have text. Wouldn't that be lovely? It would be a budget for that.
For that. I was planning on taking a laptop, so if somebody wanted to do this online and do the comments that way, we're going to have my laptop. I just need somebody I can trust at that table because it's going to be my work laptop. So they just stay on that page. And again, I'm going to have the same, so the way I'm thinking it, if you guys are comfortable with the way I've laid it out, is I'm going to take those sections and I'm going to go, okay, process in the form. Which one do you like, this one or this one? The criteria, what do you like, what do you don't like, and what's missing? You can keep that, I can make another one.
So wait, just to review this, so the welcome is going to be staff.
Yes.
Process, I'm going around the order. Then Tom with the 21 or 20 criteria.
The criteria.
Similarly, the 22 points. Charlie's doing the streets and utilities. Nancy, are you doing the landscaping open space, or is...
And Nell's doing landscaping
of
open
course.
space, and...
Of course, and then you're
hopefully
doing the-
Janet may
Be there.
be with her on landscaping.
And
Okay.
do
Yeah.
you want to float, Nancy?
And now,
Or
well,
do you want me to float and you do the landscaping open space? Where would you like to be?
I'd rather float and do the comment, we need someone for the comment
Yes.
table still, too.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
and then we have the open mic, and we need to talk about when we're doing the open mic, because that's the one that worries me the most.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's got to be a structured, personally, what I'm envisioning is you're doing the teaching, which is the PowerPoint. Then you're giving people an opportunity to learn independently and circulate, and putting a time on that is going to be really hard.
You look 45 minutes to an hour, I would think, to get around every station.
It might take less time.
It depends on the person.
It could take as little as 20 minutes if we're talking about
I know, you don't want to make it too long.
Nothing.
1, 2, 3, 4, really only 1, 2, 3. There's really only 4 areas that so I think it would be more realistically 20 to 30 minutes. And then I would think the appropriate time might be thanking that group, and then asking people to come up for comments. If anyone would like to give comments.
And I think I would really, and I think I've said this before, I'd really like to encourage them to the paper forms.
Yeah, and giving people time to do that. Maybe we could have just 5 minutes downtime, like announce, and then reconvene, let's give people some time to gather their thoughts, write down their comments, and then invite people up.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And just, if no one wants to speak, that could be an opportunity we could get up and opine a bit and why this is important, and
We can throw out some questions,
or play it by ear.
The way I'm envisioning it is people come in, they can wander, they don't have to do all the tables, they do whatever the table they want. There's a presentation, 10:15 at noon, they can stay for it, they don't have to stay for it. It's, go to the table that you're interested in and get handouts. Oh, that was the one question I was going to ask. I was going to break down each section, like streets. Do you want the streets, the proposed streets? You just want the streets, there it is. You want utilities, I put all the utilities together. Here's the open space section, here's the landscaping section. What do you think about that? And do you want the new with the old, or do you just want the proposed?
Okay, and then,
Or handouts?
all right, I just had another idea, and it's not really handout related.
Okay.
Can I answer her question first? I think the handout would be the proposed, but they have the option of, this is a thick piece of paper, though. They have the option of taking but without those comments on the side, right?
Yeah, well, I'll make this, because right now, this is 90 pages.
I mean, they have the option of taking the full thing or accessing online. I think we encourage people to say it's online.
Yes. And that's why I was thinking we could do
the section that they're most interested in and see what the proposed is. And the question was, do we want to include the new with the old with the proposed, or just the proposed? Because then they can go to the website and look at what currently exists.
Sorry, you mean in the handout at each section?
Yes. So if I'm giving you a handout, like here's your handout for the landscaping section, do you want what's currently in code, what's proposed, or both?
Aren't you handing out the whole code at the comment section, or at the introduction section, the welcome section? That
I
whole,
don't want to hand this out at the beginning. I want them to go, I think if they, because not everybody's going to want this, and I think this is intimidating.
Grow up for most people.
I think this is really intimidating. What I think is we have a copy of the proposal, and I can do that double-sided, so they can see one side of the proposed and current. And then the criteria, so that's a handout. And then when we get into the chapters that we started with, do we just want to provide them with what we're proposing, with what's currently there, or both?
It's,
And then we'll have a couple of copies if somebody wants the entire thing, but we'll tell them the entire thing is on the website.
I think you have like stuff highlighted and underlined, the new stuff, right?
Except in some sections, it's such a rewrite that
Yeah.
it almost doesn't, there's really no comparison almost.
Oh, and I was thinking also having the definitions, just a copy of the definitions. So like, it's like you can get almost all of this, but you can pick what you want. That's what I was thinking.
yeah.
Thoughts?
The only, my idea that I had was, no, I think that's good. And the only,
Is it, do you want just the new or the new and the old together?
I want the old available, but more as a reference. Do you think people really need to take that?
Like the
I think
desk
it's all
copy,
fine.
like the
Desk
table,
copies.
we'll call it the table copy.
Yeah, that's
of
what I
what's
meant. Yes,
old.
exactly.
Like so I can make copies of the current code as it exists, and it's like, oh, you want the new stuff? Here's the new.
Yeah.
So, and when we can tell them where to go look at because I, even as somebody who does this is a lot to absorb.
I would have
As someone on this committee, it's a lot to absorb.
I would say have 2 or 3 of the old copies, a desk, and it should be marked desk
Copy, and it should say on it, available online at blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
so they know they can see it. I like that because in part, I think, some sections are such major rewrites, and people may not realize that, and... But you were in the middle of saying something.
No, it is really, it's more of like a nuts and bolts thing. For the comment table, so what is the comment table going to look like? It's got the forms.
2 forms.
Right.
Two forms that have 2 boxes, so you can submit your comments into the form. We'll have a computer there, so if you don't like writing, you can go online and type everything in. And was there something else that you wanted?
I was just thinking, more space, maybe have that at least 2 tables, if not 3 tables. Because I picture when you go to the DELDOT workshops, there's always like tables in the middle, and you can go right. Or we could put some empty tables with pens, and they could go, and people want to take a minute and prepare their comments. Could be up by the closet, perhaps.
Yeah, I was thinking that's the station that's actually going to have chairs near it, so people could sit down and write
Yeah,
their
people are going to want to
comments.
sit down and write, that's my point.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is like,
And
you're not going to just try to write
No,
this.
and if we want to be able to read these, we want to give people, we do not want to do just clipboards because we won't be able to read them.
No, I was thinking that's the one that's going to have chairs. Everybody else will have chairs behind, so like we can sit down, so we don't stand for 3 hours. But everybody else that's the one station that gets chairs, because you really, I don't like standing up and writing. So that was my thought. I forgot, I apologize for not passing that along, that you're going to sit down and write, so.
Or a couple, I'm picturing like the little hub of chairs. You could even put some tables kind of in the middle there and just have, so people could be sitting around distanced with pens and Purell and
Do we have access to the room the night before?
Yeah, we should.
Okay.
I don't think anybody's in there. I don't think anybody's in there, so
Just hoping there isn't other meetings.
I can find out right now.
That's easy to find out.
Let me see who's got the room, because I don't think so, and I can get into the room, and,
I'm happy to do the comments table, and I'm thinking in terms of a schedule, and you and I discussed this, Janelle, is, we have a 10 o'clock start time that's mostly going to be, we want people to gather and welcome.
Yep.
And at 10:15, I'll deliver this presentation, this presentation. And then when that's over, people start circulating. And I'm thinking at like 11 something, when they seem to be finishing, we open the mic. That we don't have that mic open right after the presentation. We wait till people have circulated and
we see if anybody wants to use it, because maybe
we don't do it at all.
yeah, maybe we don't, and so I think maybe that we hold that in our back pocket
Yeah.
if somebody wants to do that, but we don't have that ready and waiting for them. It's a back pocket kind of if you need it and are thinking about it.
And then at noon, we repeat the presentation.
Yep, and people can come and go, and we're going to record and live stream the presentations. The rest of the time, it's just going to be people coming in and out.
Right.
Nothing else is going to be, the rest of the time will not be on Zoom, or because it's just people coming through a room. So I wanted to make sure we will stream the presentations and at 10:15 and noon.
And I have another question, which is more about the notification. The format that it was sent out in looks very much like every public meeting, and this really is something that almost is, do you have the ability to send it out as another format that looks really more of like an invitation to a workshop for people, so that they understand how interactive and that this is a learning opportunity and a feedback?
Language, the format that the email goes out, I don't.
So you couldn't put in there just a paragraph explaining, when I say paragraph, I mean a short paragraph, explaining this just isn't a link to an agenda and a scheduled meeting, as so many are, that just,
This is an interactive workshop.
right, and that we hope you're going to come and participate.
I was even wondering, and I can't remember anyone ever doing this before, if we're permitted to.
And that is writing a letter to the editor.
We've missed, deadline for Cape Gazette Friday.
Is that Friday?
Is tomorrow at 11.
11, yeah. Yeah.
Well, so that I don't miss it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're generally an early person. That wouldn't be my description of myself.
But I always put I post my agendas the day, I need to, it's on the agenda the day before, my calendar the day before, so I remember to do it, and yeah. If you want to do a letter, that is up to you. If you want to reach out to the Cape Gazette to get them to do that, I can put a different flyer on the website to make it a little bit more fun and interactive.
Yeah, that would be great. I usually send it to Newsroom and to Nick Roth, a copy. Yeah.
You know how they have that section in the Gazette that shows like when the LPC's meeting and what the agenda is and all that?
We are listed there.
How do they get that? They go on the city's website?
They go on the website
So
for the
this is on the
agendas.
city's website, right?
Yeah, I posted this last night, but I said I posted it today because it got posted like
So at
5:30.
least being that.
Yeah, and it would also be, to think of it, when that announcement comes out that explains what this is a little bit more, that we forward that to the local press.
Because I can redo because I have until midnight tonight to redo the agenda, so.
Because, I know I was
no plans to be
even,
here, but.
the local press does follow it. Alyssa Bainbridge is new on WRD, but she is one who is following a lot.
I will do my best to reach out to as many people as possible. I will.
I know your job is not public relations. We're not adding you up to anything else, I don't think, but.
I can work on being some wording on the agenda and on the I can resend an email.
I think resending the email is the most
And-
powerful
and
tool,
then-
because
Yeah.
those are the people who get those emails and
Yeah.
have signed up for them,
Yeah.
are the people who are
Yeah.
really interested in the city. So, that's all.
And this is really everyone's chance to get in kind of at the ground floor as things are being developed, so.
Yes, and I do believe that there are going to be a fair amount of people who won't attend, that they'll read about in the paper, and then they will look on the website, and then we'll get feedback. So, or they'll come to LPC that night.
You'll probably have developers and engineers show up too.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yes, I did.
I'm sure at LPC we will.
Yeah. And I hope we do, I hope we have
We want those
Session, we want to hear from everyone.
Because everyone should be understanding this clearly. And really, I hope that developers understand that not only is this, this is making it a better process for applicants and for neighbors. Everyone gets to know earlier, everyone gets feedback earlier. They know there's going to be protests in almost any development at this point, and you might as well just deal with it before you've invested such great amounts of money.
So Tom, can you send me the updated criteria list so I can get that printed, because we're gonna make minor tweaks? Charlie's gonna get me what he wants on his boards. And I think what we're gonna do is do a lot of the bullet points that's in the PowerPoint presentation, so I'll do that for my boards as well. If there's anything you need for process, what colors? I've got red, green, yellow, and blue sticky dots. So what color would you like, Deborah, for your activity?
I would like, what do you have, red, green, and blue?
And yellow.
I would like red, yellow, and green.
Okay, well, because you only need one color for like picking on the, I'm sorry. I'm gonna bring them all and you can pick that day, which one you want to use, and then we'll
You
just.
have a rainbow one that maybe you
I don't, it didn't come that way. And then Nancy, if you want to let me know what you think you're gonna need.
Well, I have comments, so I would like some stickies, because if on the fly I decide to put up a sign saying, overall, positive or negative on what you've seen today, you know?
I can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got,
Enough stickies for different colors to cover everybody. So, yeah, we've got like 6 different color stickies, so I will bring all the
The
sticky notes.
quickie reactions are sometimes by some people are something I liked, something I didn't understand, something I had a concern about.
Yeah, and I think if we gear that and we put like a little instruction, it's like, tell us what you like, what you don't like, and what's missing in your stickies, and use your stickies that way, then we are focusing to so I think
That would be really cool, is what did we miss today?
Yeah.
I think that might be the most telling
yeah, did we not?
on the general comments.
Yeah.
What's our dress code?
What's our what?
Dress code.
Oh,
For us.
suit and tie, Charlie.
Oh, yeah, right, listen to you. I'll do it.
It's like, wait,
I'm
I'm not afraid of it.
do we have a dress code? Business, it's only jeans, I would assume business casual.
Yeah.
My hair's going to be blue no matter what I do, so.
It's okay.
You want the blue sticky notes then?
Yeah, I think that would be, I think the pink, was pink an option? No.
I'm sorry.
I prefer a contrast color.
It came in red, blue, yellow, and
Green and red, because I really like Christmas too.
see, and we're gonna be closer to Christmas. Okay. I'm sorry.
Okay. I think we're in good shape.
I feel like we're in good shape. I definitely can use a better copy than this one.
Right. And
Do we have, okay.
I will revise this. My
I'm
big
sure I
worry is
have to
getting
say to my
your
computer.
stuff, Charlie, so I can get it in here, you know. So,
Yes.
and as people think of things, I'm gonna do another version of this and send it out probably even without Charlie's stuff. So,
And we'll
you
make,
can start getting it into, you're putting it in the city's format?
I can.
Okay.
And then, And then I can make copies of the PowerPoint presentation as well.
If you want me to put it in the city's format, I can, it's up to you.
Not gonna take that much time,
Okay, good.
but.
What I want to do is go back and every time I want to go home with a paper cutter and make all of this into reusable scrap paper. Because I've got like
Oh, yeah, yeah.
15 different drafts going on here. And move all my Post-it notes from one to the next.
See, that's always my dilemma, is I've printed it two-sided.
Me too.
If you do one-sided, you can cut it and use it as notepads, okay? If you do
Yeah,
two-sided,
I know,
kind
you
of,
can't.
you can do,
Well, we can recycle.
do whatchamacallit.
You can do just you can do the borders and have shopping lists.
Yeah, you know where you,
When do you want to get back together?
They're in January. Because the record's gonna be, you're leaving the comment period open to December 13th, so I don't see us meeting before Christmas. So then we can schedule the next meeting, because otherwise,
I'm gonna miss you guys.
you taking all of January off?
well,
I was like,
and let me just say, just for people who are thinking that this is coming to an end,
it's kind of starting all over again.
it's
only the beginning.
Okay, it's only the beginning.
It really
Because
is.
when you really think through all of the processes, now we're going to have to do revisions based on what we've learned. Then it's going to go to LPC. Then we'll do revisions based on LPC. And then even after we get to the point where hopefully City Council passes something around this, there's the user-friendly side of it where we really want to have, the checklists, the document kind of explaining more some of the guidelines with illustrations, that kind of thing. That's still another piece of work to be done, so.
So I know it's going to sound crazy, but I'm thinking late January because we're hitting the holidays into, hopefully we get a ton of people, hopefully people come. And then we need to, Tom and myself need to take all that information that we've gathered and put it into a usable form so we can get that back out to you guys. And that's going to be tough to do because I'm taking a little bit of time off. Tom's probably going to enjoy family time. So
I'll be co-running Lewis Lights for the month of December. I'm married to Santa Claus, so.
And I'm in a family that celebrates Christmas twice, so we're also on January 7th celebrating Christmas all over again for Orthodox Christmas.
There you go.
there you go.
So my holiday season ends.
I just celebrate for all month.
What?
November, January, I have like this calendar, it's like 20, but it's November and December, and it's like Christmas, and then there's like 5 days out, visit ponies on Shinkantae. That's the only thing there's like a special time you can go and visit ponies. So other than 3 days of watching ponies, it's gonna be all Christmas.
Okay, so
And
we
this.
got
Time on the 26th of January, the 28th of January.
When's the planning commission's on the 19th, eh?
It is.
26 does not work for me.
I'm not sure we're gonna have stuff be able to turn back around that early in January. It's just, if we get a lot of people, that's gonna be a lot of work to sort
26
through.
doesn't work for me.
Okay, the 28th?
What about the 24th?
That looks good. There is a 3 o'clock, so we can do 1.
And I'm lost here.
Would we do even 10 a.m.?
We can.
Is that too early for you, Deborah?
No, tell me, I'm lost.
Of a non-morning person you are.
I'm a real non-morning person, but it wasn't as bad as not having any water today.
No, Monday, January 24th at 10 a.m.
Okay.
Hours?
Yes.
Does that work for you, Tom?
Yep, as long as Mother Winter doesn't raise her head.
And that is why we have Zoom.
That's why we live in Lewis.
Yeah.
I'd also like to wrap this meeting up with something that I did a little research here. At the beginning was a discussion of possible parcels. There is actually a 3.64 acre parcel on this side of the Freeman Highway, sitting between the trail, I believe owned by Robert Kennedy.
Oh, yes,
I'm correct on that,
I'm
right?
not sure what that's zoned.
yeah.
Well, it's an open parcel,
Huh.
sitting, if you drive over the Freeman Bridge and you see the land.
Yeah, yeah,
Off to the right if you're driving
out of town.
off the beach.
Yeah.
Off to the right there, unaffiliated with Schofield.
Yeah, it backs up to the trail off the
Yeah.
American Way. Yep.
Who owns that though? Isn't that the land that,
No, there's, again,
Privately owned, that's fine,
part of it is privately owned.
Because I thought part of that was city land.
I think when you get up to the BPW holdings, that becomes a different thing. I don't know what's owned. Part of it, as you go up to the parking lot, the water tower,
You think about
comes city
3
land,
acres, we're not getting
BPW.
a ton of lots out of it. You're talking about a small major subdivision, if that.
Yeah, but you could be also talking about a mixed use or a, higher densities, because there are duplexes already there on Schley Avenue right now.
Yes, but that code has changed within the last 2 years, that there's a separation distance between that.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is, that did change for that, because that is zoned R4.
What if someone proposed it as, senior housing or something like that? How does that change the rules?
It depends on if it's a permitted use or not,
Right.
and it depends on how it comes
If it's
in.
R4, you can't have it. That's a senior housing, well, unless
Over
it's,
2.5 acres, though, because 2.4 or 2.5 is the minimum.
Yeah, but it all depends on the housing type they want to do, so, and then.
And this is, of
parking,
course,
there's
all wildly
stormwater.
theoretical, but
And I think there's
was
environmental.
just saying, there are, and if we really think deeply, there may be some other little pockets here and there. We're certainly only dealing with little infill pockets, but little infill pockets become no more open space, and
Deborah is the one member of the committee here.
I propose that we convene for today.
I second, and all in favor? Aye. We're
Aye.
see everybody Tuesday?
Yes. Should we talk, sorry, now I'm thinking there's something we still have to say, and that is, if we're starting at noon, we as a group need to be there.
9:30.
At what, 9?
Sorry, if we're starting at
9:30.
10,
At no later.
we need
Yeah,
to
we
be
need to be
there
there by
no later
9:30.
than 9:30.
Yeah.
So, okay. Just want to make sure we're not.
No,
And between now and then, our biggest task is to get people to that meeting, because I'm worried that we're only going to have like 10 people.
And I'm really sorry to say this, my biggest task is also to get people signed up for those slides, because it's closing on the 25th, and I'm the PR person.